So in order to interact with these views in our view controller here, in our code, we need to connect them to our code. So the way to do this is to open our assistant editor. I'm going to close this side panel so we have some space here to work with. And you see by default it's set that it's going to choose the automatic view controller that is associated with this view. And currently ours is the default view controller that our Xcode has created for us. I'm going to make some space here on top before the function view.didLoad, and I'm going to explain what this is. So what we want to do is to select each view element one by one and then hit Ctrl on the keyboard, press it down and just drag, click and drag to our view here, to our text. And the connection type is an outlet. We have actually three options here: outlet, action and outlet collection. These are the two main things we are going to use, outlets and actions. And the difference I will explain in just a second. So we have an outlet here, and this I'm going to say dog age text field. Pay attention that I'm using camel case here. I am giving my variable here a name, which is dog age, and then I am writing the text field so I know what type of UI element this is. So you can see the type at the bottom is a text field. So if I if I come back in 1 year and try to read my code, I will when I see dog age text field, I know that this is referred to a text field that is responsible for dog age. And then I'm going to click connect. So you see that we have something here, it's called IB outlet, and I will tell you what this is in just a bit as soon as we connect all the options here. Then we select our label, again Control drag, and this is again outlet, and this is type of UI label. So I'm going to call this human age label, and if you click enter it will connect it. Because this is a type label, I'm putting the label in the name, and this is going to show our human age. So this is how I'm calling it. Then we are going to skip our view.didLoad function, which you can see that this is a function with the name view.didLoad. And here we are going to connect our button here. So if I drag, control and drag and put it here, you will see that connection type is automatically set to action instead of outlet, because Xcode is smart enough that when we are putting it underneath a function, it understands that we want to create an action for this. If I were put this on, if I cancel this and drag it on top here, it will tell me that I want to put an outlet here. So it's up to you where you want to put your functions. But as a general rule, I always like to keep my code tidy, and I always put all my connections outlets on top, and then we have the functions at the bottom. So let's drag this and call this calculate button pressed. So this is my function name, because right now we are creating an action which is a function. The type you can keep any, or you can click on a UI button. So this is a type of object that is calling this function. And then we have an event touch up inside, and all these different events you can assign to the button. Throughout this course we're going to use only the touch up inside. So when you click the button, then release, only then the function is going to work. So we have all these three things connected. Let's close our assistant editor and open our side panel here. Actually, before we go there, we can open also our right hand panel, and if we go to our connections, you will see that our dog age has a reference outlet to our view controller. Then our label has a referencing outlet to our view controller with name of human age, and our calculate has a touch-up insight linked to our view controller as well with the calculate button pressed function. So I'm going to show you right now the most happening error that new developers get from Xcode. So imagine you have created these views and you have created also the link, and for some reason you had a typo in your text or something, no matter what, you had a mistake and you want to say, for example, dog age text field 1. So you think now everything is correct, you just rename this and this is perfectly fine. So if I run my code now, my application, we're going to have an error. Let's see what our exception here says. First, it throws an error, and pay attention, it is throwing an error on appdelegate.swift file. Even though we never accessed this file, we never changed anything, the error just stops here. If we click on error, it will give us a message of what's going on, and it says thread 1 signal Sigabird. When you see this type of error, the thing is, this is linked to a UI element. So also we can open the error printout here. This is our debugging area. You can see there is a long list of error. The most of this part is just junk, not useful to a human at least. What is interesting for us, it says terminating with uncapped exception of type NS exception. Okay, so there was some kind of exception, it didn't know what to do, so it crashed the application. If you scroll up and there is like line numbers here, once you get to the 0, and then you will have a printout here. It says terminating up due to uncaught exception of NS unknown key exception reason. And now this part for a human makes some sense. It says reason, and then it gives us our application name, then the view controller the problem is, which is our view controller because the name is just view controller there, and then it says set value for identified key, and then we say this class is not a key value coding compliant for the key, and this is the most important part for us, dog age text field. So what the error means is that when it came to our storyboard and we have this dog age text field, if we open our connection, you will see that it's connected to our view controller to a dog age text field outlet. So if we go to our view controller, there is no such thing as dog age text field because we have renamed it to dog age text field 1, and Xcode is trying to find the dog age text field and it doesn't exist, so it throws out an error. The same thing can happen to our human age label, or if I rename my button here, the function that when button is being called. So if you are renaming something here, you are going to do the same thing for our user interface, so it's in our main storyboard. So what you are going to do is select the user interface that element that you have renamed and go to the connections inspector and just click on the X next to it. So for example, if I have renamed it, or by mistake if I delete it because there was an error or something, and if I just do a reconnect and call this my dog age text field, now this is perfectly fine. We have a my dog age which is connected to this one, this user interface object here. Also, if you scroll over to these dots, you will see that our UI element that is associated with this is being highlighted. You see, for some reason it doesn't do the same for our label, because Xcode still thinks that this is the one we have deleted, because previously here we had a dog age text field, and it still thinks that this is the second object. That's why it doesn't understand the label. But if we just close and open this, now you see it points out to a human age label. So if I reopen our assistant here and I scroll over this, it will show the user object connected to this and this one, and the same thing with our button, so it links to the button. But if we go to our storyboard here, and if I click on my dog age text field, you will see under our connections that now I have two connections here. Both of them are linked to my view controller. And if I run the application now, it's going to crash again because of these two connections, and one of them doesn't exist anymore. So let's see the crash report again. Again, it throws out a Sigabert error. And if I scroll up in my error area here, the log, again we can read the reason of terminating, and it says that the key dog age text field is doesn't exist. So how to fix this? The way to fix it is actually to remove the unnecessary connection. So you select your user object, UI element, come to dog age text field and click the X next to it. So it will just delete it. Now we have my dog age text field connected to our view, and if I run my code, this will not crash anymore because we have one connection and this connection exists in our code. So this is a simple and very, very common way of getting errors in the Xcode, especially when you're a beginner. These errors happen to the all-time developers if you are an experienced developer as well, but for beginners this is the most common error that is happening. Always there is something wrong with the connection. So if you see a Sigabert error, go make sure that your connections are pointing to the right places. Another thing that, since we are talking about errors, when you have some kind of errors in your application, of course you can ask the instructor or your fellow students for help, and this you can do by placing a question under question and answer section on Udemy. So what you are going to do is to help the instructor understand the error source. The best thing is to take a screenshot of your error and make sure you have your debug area open with your error, and make sure you have scrolled it on the place where actually it says when or where the error has happened. We're going to come back to error topic later on. It's just a heads up what's the best way to share your errors. If you don't know how to make a screenshot on a Mac, it's Shift Command 3, and you will hear a taking picture sound. And if I go to my desktop now, you will see that I have a screenshot here, which was taken just now from my code there. So I'm going to delete my screenshot and get back to my code here.